Hey there, thank you for waking up with Happy Ass, where we come together to grow in mind, body, and spirit so we can go out and make the world a brighter and sweeter place to live for ourselves and for others. I've got a super good friend of mine, and Brian, I'm going to use some words to describe you. I know you're a father, a son, a brother, business owner, professor, leader, you're a seeker, you're an educator, you're an encourager, but more important than that to me, you're a very honorable man. Very honorable man. You're very smart. You're very organized. You're a Jesus follower, big time. You are a devoted husband and father, and you are growth oriented. Does that sound pretty accurate?
I would love to live up to those things. I say that.
I think you do. And let me tell you where that came from about adjectives and stuff describing people. When Hugh and I were married, when we would write each other notes, he would write, dear, sweet, kind, loving, adorable, precious, angelic. He would just think as many adjectives as he could to describe me in a kind way. So I would do the same thing to him. And I think we don't do that enough with people. I don't think when we see somebody coming, we don't think about how amazingly created by God they are. I think that is so cool to me. So did I leave any adjectives out that we need to know?
I'm sure my wife has some adjectives that, but no, I mean, those would be the ones that I would love to aspire to be though, you know? I mean, I think words are very powerful. And when you find yourself, we went to this event called Catalyst, that's right. And he talked about being there at one of those events, and it was like the biggest downer, and he was the only one that showed up in this room. But I remember somehow I heard about him, and he was funny, and I started following him a little bit. And then it was years went by, and I kind of rediscovered him. We listened to an audiobook, or I listened to an audiobook called Soundtracks. And it was the soundtracks that we play in our minds, right?
I've read it 3 times and listened to it twice.
And then he said he and his daughters wrote another book that was for his kid age. They were in college-ish. And we listened to that as my family listened to on a trip together, and my kids really were able to resonate with it. So it really kind of got me back on the John Acuff bus of, hey, he's got some really good things to share. And I thought, why not go to this event? And then I run into you there.
Oh my gosh, that was so cool. We were on the second row. It was absolutely, to me, I've been to a lot of things. It was one of the most beneficial things I've been to. It wasn't fancy. It was just, it was just awesome. I loved it. So are there any things that we heard there that you have really thought about since you got home or you've implemented?
They said to go through your notes soon after you get home. And I did go through my notes, and it gave me, several to-do items. One really is you see people doing something that you ultimately want to do. Well, the reason that they're doing it is they started, right? They started doing it. They just started doing it. And you see people that are in positions that you're wondering, well, how did they get there? Well, they started down this path. So, I think I probably tried to leave back maybe a limiting belief that, you can't get to maybe one of the places you want to go.
For me, for sure, because I'm 66 and I keep thinking, oh, if not now, when? Come on, Karen, get on your boogie horse, let's get it going. But I am doing it. I'm just doing all the things.
You're only 66.
That's right. I'm only 66. I got a long way to go. I know. And so the other thing that I want to talk to you about that I think is very important to you, and we had my daughter said, Mom, Brian made me cry the whole time. We had lunch with you. And we just talked about a lot of, I don't know what, maybe I thought we were in the therapist. We talked about a lot of deep, heartfelt things that we felt on our heart that were important to us. And one of the things that's so important to you is youth, and specifically youth in your church, because those are the ones you can reach. And you were telling us about a program y'all started in your church or something about, because tell me about the stats about kids leaving church and not going to church after you get to a certain age and what y'all are doing. That's amazing.
So the program at our church is called The Well, and they named it The Well after it was formed. But there's a lot of statistics on children that are brought up in the church, and you raise them in a Christian community for 18 years, and then you send them off into the world, and you hope for the best, right? Well, about 70% of young people walk away from their faith during that time. I mean, that's a horrible statistic. And I can't believe that we even accept it as something.
That's really bad.
And so, I mean, God just put it on my heart that we need to do something about it. And there were just all these intersections, all these things that were just kind of happening in my life. And you realize they're not a coincidence. They're happening for a reason. And I mean, I even had a student in my class that she was getting married. My wife and I went to her wedding shower. And we pulled up and we realized that the church that she went to, they had a college ministry. And I'm thinking, a college ministry at a church? I didn't even know that was a thing. And I go, well, we don't have one. Well, maybe we can introduce ours to them. And so we, through a series of meetings, some of the people from, I'm not staff at our church or anything. I'm just a helper and I have a vested interest, right? And so I brought them into a few meetings, and we ended up deciding to start one of our own. And so we started, it's called The Well, and we've been meeting every Wednesday night at 8:00, which is about my bedtime.
I know. Yeah. It is my bedtime.
So I really, I think that the fact that I can stay up late on Wednesday nights is telling me one thing. Yeah. And so he's opened the door. He's blessed it. We met last night. We had probably about 30 young college age students. And you know what? They don't have to be in college. It's just college age, right? So we're looking for that 18 to 28 range. And it's been awesome. And I'll just, there's a plug. My daughter gets to go now too, because after spring break, what we did is we invited those that are seniors in high school
to be able
to start coming and get plugged in. And so that's kind of how that started. I missed a piece that I feel like I should share too. So back when I was discovering that, hey, 70% of the people, and we started this program at our church called Faith Anchors. And what it was is we were connecting a young person that was recently graduating with someone else in the church other than their parents. And they would agree to stay in touch with each other once a month. And I basically just put together a little curriculum. When I say curriculum, it's, hey, these are kind of the things that might be going on in their life at these different stages of months after graduating high school. And then maybe here's some pertinent Bible verses that might go along with it. Just a way to get connected again, right? And so that started, which Faith Anchor started, which led into The Well, and Lord knows where it's going to go next.
That's so much. Okay, you saw a need, and you didn't know what you were doing, but you did it anyway. I mean, that's kind of something we were talking about yesterday with Lacey Count. She said, nobody knows what they're doing. It's our first rodeo with everything we do. We just have the courage to do it, and we learn along the way.
Yes. And so there's at our church, there's Mary McQuaig, who is the youth minister, and I may have said that wrong. Maybe family life minister.
Yeah.
And then Neil McGee, who is the youth minister, and they've raised these young people up into 18, and they were like, we can't let them go. And so they have a vested interest in that too. That's amazing. They're at all of those meetings as well.
So are you having any kids from Gulf Coast or any college kids that are here now come to your church to do this college thing? I wonder.
Yeah, there are young people that have gone to our church, and then they're inviting their friends.
That's
and
beautiful.
So
it's beautiful, because I know that was my case. I was very active in my church, youth ministry and fellowship of Christian athletes. I was all of it. I went to college and I went stark raving crazy. And do you think I went to church? Oh heck no. No, I went to the church of the beer chugging at the local bar. I mean,
And where does that leave you feeling?
Horrible. I was lost. I was so lost. And I think I told you that story when we were sitting together, that I was in school in Florida in St. Petersburg. Can't think of the name, but St. Petersburg. And so I was there, and I was feeling kind of lost and lonely, and just something wasn't quite right, And I went to a church, and little kids were singing the song, "He's Still Working on Me." And it just pierced my heart. I go, this is what I'm missing. When you've been brought up a certain way, or faith is an integral part of your life, I don't think God lets you leave it. I think he keeps going. He knocks and goes, come on, come back to me, Karen. So having that is beautiful. And of course, I love how you said he has a vested interest. That's because he has four beautiful, amazing children. And I believe Morgan is just graduated, and that's blowing my mind because I had the blessing of her interning here.
And thank you. That was what a wonderful experience. I remember when her telling me she wanted to do an internship, and I go, she wants to be an entrepreneur too, and so, but she doesn't know what she wants to do yet. I don't know. And I said, even if you don't know what you want to do, just one of the things you need to know is marketing. And Karen Smith, she is the marketeer. And I was like, I want you to get close to her and see what she's doing and see the types of marketing aspects that she has going on in her businesses. So thank you for taking her under your wing too. So.
She was just, the idea that I got a child that age, because how old is she? 18?
She's 18 now.
18. Yeah. And she and I are discussing the books we're reading, and they're all beautiful, like Andy Stanley's books, and of course John Acuff, and different. And I share with her some books that I thought she might not have read. So the idea that I've got an 18-year-old, it makes me just get teary-eyed that I'm discussing those things with. You have to be so grateful.
Oh my goodness, I am so grateful, and God has been so good to me and Jessica. With the kids that he has blessed us with, because we don't deserve it, right? But we get to raise these awesome kids.
Yeah.
And all four of our kids are just equally, uniquely.
And that's so cool. But one thing we talked about, and this is not disparaging because I'm a single mother. I'm getting to do it twice. I guess God thought, you did such a good job. Let's do it again. So I had my kids. I call him my starter husband. My starter husband left when Sheldon was 10, and then another one was like 13. I think. So I was left without a husband, without any support, and I raised them by myself. Now, I think it took its toll. I don't think I had the wherewithal, or I didn't know. I can't be a father and a mother too. I can only be the mother. And so there is a disadvantage in the homes where there's not the father and mother. There just is. And I'm not saying it can't be done. We see all kind of people doing it, and now I'm doing it again. But the thing is, that is so beautiful. And we talked about what's so cool is I know your mom and daddy, and they're so precious. Oh my gosh. Great parents. And then you got you two. And it's not because life has always been easy for you, but it's your value for family and doing the things that keep a family together.
Well, I will say, none of us get to pick our parents, right?
No.
Okay. So, but mine, and I got dealt a full house.
You
right?
really did.
And so I got the best. And they have modeled marriage well. They have modeled how to raise kids well. And so, it is, I just now get to kind of model what they showed me how to do, right?
Something else they modeled really well, and you and I talked about this too, and we're kind of on the same token, is we're kind of freaky about fitness. You and I both are kind of really
got to take care of yourself.
We're into taking care of ourselves. That's real important to us. And your parents are very healthy, very fit. They look great. Your dad's still super handsome. So that's so cool.
He's gonna appreciate you.
Yeah, he is super handsome man. So you do look like your daddy for sure. So so what you told me that I think because you just turned 50, and you said a while before you turned 50, you said, you know what? When I'm 50, I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. Tell me kind of what happened there, what sparked that.
Right. It actually goes back way before that. Yeah. So, when I was in high school, I was a string bean, and I couldn't put on a pound of anything, really.
Oh, we're so sorry for you.
Yeah, I know. I remember my dad saying, one day you're going to be so glad about that. And I hated it at the time, right? Yeah. But I remember when I got to college, I started working out and got in shape, and I liked it. I liked the way I felt, liked the way I looked. And so when I graduated from college, I just tried to kind of stay in that routine. But I realized how easy it was to get out of that routine.
So easy.
And there's a couple things that happened. One, when I graduated from graduate school, my first big purchase was I bought a Bowflex. A Bowflex piece of workout equipment. And this is why I remember the commercial. It's a guy, he's sitting on the Bowflex, and he puts his hand on his thing like this. And he goes, I'm 41 years old and I'm in the best shape of my life. And I go, that is a great plan. That is a great plan. I would have been in my early 20s at the time. And I go, that is a great plan. I think I want to do that. And so I bought a Bowflex, and I wasn't married yet. I was dating Jessica, but I was not married
might
yet.
help.
And so it went into the living room, right? And so I was living by myself up in Michigan at the time. And so I went to the living room. And so I started an exercise plan, and just kind of stayed in shape. Well, once I moved back to Panama City, this would have been 2003. A couple builders kind of started taking me under their wing a little bit, and a couple other guys were just showing me the ropes, and they were in the process of kind of retiring, And I remember one of the guys, I remember me thinking, he's so unhealthy, he's not going to be able to enjoy this. And I just made myself a promise right then. I said, I am not going to work my whole career and then when it's time to retire, not be able to enjoy it. And so I said, I don't work until I've worked out every day. And so,
Same.
so I work out in the morning before I go to work. And that, so I've been doing that for, I don't know, close to 25 years or so. And so I didn't know this was going to lead to this. This is the cool part. And now Morgan and Tyler, my two oldest.
I know, this made me so happy.
They work out with me in the mornings. And so I go get them up. It's around 6 o'clock or so that I'll get them up, and they get up and work out with me. And what a treasure that is. What a blessing it is. I mean, just getting that time, that kind of quality time with them that I wouldn't have gotten. I didn't realize that would have been one of the paybacks, but I am so thankful to God for him blessing me like that. I didn't see that one coming.
That's so amazing. But the thing with our kids and anybody really is what we're doing, not what we're saying. How are we living our lives? What are we doing? The example we're setting. And so for me, I have a passion, just almost obsession with wanting to scream to my friends, now's the day. Stop putting this off. Stop telling me that you're going to take care of yourself a week from now or a month from now. Today's the day, because this is the deal. Almost all of the ailments, the maladies that we have before us are self-induced because we haven't taken care of our metabolic health. We haven't taken care of ourselves. And when I had COVID and almost died, it's not like I was in horrible shape, but I wasn't in optimum shape. Yeah. And something clicked to me, and I said, you're going to do whatever you got to do. And Dr. Jen Berg, now I don't look like she did in that bikini contest, but Dr. Jen Berg, who is still my coach, has been for 2.5 years. She was in a bikini contest, a bodybuilding contest, and I went, you know what? I'm going to give her a call. I gave her a call in that February, and I started, and I still to this day, I know it might be a little over, but I track my food. I watch what goes in my body. And if it doesn't, one person said, it needs to not only taste good, it needs to feel good to you or be good to you. You know what I mean? So I started that journey.
That's awesome.
I've always done it off and on, but I'm like you. I don't care what's going on. Yeah. I remember the day we had the snow. I remember getting on Facebook in the morning and going, when is it safe to get on the road? And I'm on the road going like 15 miles an hour in my Jeep and it's sliding around,
Were you heading to the gym?
Yeah, I was getting that. Me and 2 other people were in the gym.
That's awesome. That is awesome, Karen.
But what it does, and I want to scream it from the rafters, when you take care of yourself in mind, body, and spirit, it changes everything.
Yeah. I just said this last night to somebody. I was up at a Eat and Find event, and I said, if you win the morning, you can win the day, right?
Absolutely.
Start your morning out right. And we're not promised tomorrow, right? And so I look at it as, what are the most important things that I can do every morning? And before I work out, that's where I spend time, spend time in the Word and spend time praying with God and just try to start my day like that.
Well, that is a perfect segue into the next thing I'm going to ask you.
Oh,
That's perfect.
Okay.
I'm going to read you something.
Okay.
And I don't know, are you familiar with Mark Batterson?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, love. Okay, let me tell you, people out there in Happy Ass Land, just pick any of his books. Pick any of them. But this is one that I'm going back to another time. This is called Draw the Circle, and it's got 40 days. It's 40 days of really intense prayer.
Okay.
And you'll know why you know what I'm probably about to ask you, but I'm going to read a quote to you, and then we're going to talk about something that you started doing.
Okay.
It says, if you pray to God regularly, irregular things will happen on a regular basis. Okay. And we were talking about things like that, about our different faith journey and stuff like that. And you told me something so cool, and I'll never forget it, is that you now have coffee with the king.
Coffee with the king. That's what I call it.
Oh, tell us about coffee with the king.
In order to do so, I do need to rewind a little bit. Okay.
That's great.
So let me rewind. So back in May of 2009, I really had I would say an awakening, where I remember praying and asking God, because I was like, God, I want to know you. I really want to know you. But I didn't have a hunger to read his word. Right. And I'm like, you didn't give us a TV show to watch, I guess Chosen wasn't out yet. Right. And you didn't give us a movie to watch, but you gave us your word. And so, God, would you please give me a hunger for your word? And I was earnest in that prayer, and he answered it. And I'll just say, just like working out, there's been very few days since May of 2009 that I haven't started in the word. And I'm so thankful for that. Well, so, I would pray, every morning, and I would have like, Monday I'd pray about this, and Tuesday I'd pray about that, Wednesday I'd pray, I'd kind of have these routine things, and it just kind of felt non-relational, like if I was sitting there with my dad or with my mom, I wouldn't say, well, it's Monday and we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to pray because this hasn't been answered yet. And, can we talk about that again? And I'm like, I just don't think that's the way he wanted to talk to me. And so I remember I was in a time of just earnest prayer about this, and just asking God, help me figure this out. Help me. I want to have a real communication with you. And I don't want it to be where I'm just reciting something or saying the same prayer over and over again or saying the same things over. I want it to be organic, and I want it to be relational. And I was on my paddleboard. I remember this. I remember exactly where I was, pulling back into the bayou. And it was like, you have coffee every morning, and you sit down and you have coffee every morning. And it's like, you can have coffee with me. And I was like, I wasn't hearing words. I don't want to make it sound that way. I wasn't hearing words, but it was like that. It was as close to that as I could. And then it was like, I was like, I could have coffee with the king, like the king of the universe. How awesome would that be? What would I say? What would I say if I was going to be in front of the king of the universe in the morning, starting my day? What are the things I'd want to ask him and tell him and all these things? And it completely changed my prayer life. I don't know if you know this about me, but there's people that I meet with regularly, and I keep a note in my phone that says discuss with, and it'll be all these people's names. And every time I think of something I want to talk to that person about, I'll write it. And so that way, when I'm in front of them, I can bring that topic up, right? And so I could do the same thing with God. This, you imagine kind of where my mind was going with this. And this may sound really strange. A lot of what we've said so far may sound really strange, but I'm just telling you it's real. Okay. I'm telling you that it's real. And so, I started a list of all the things I wanted to ask God and talk to God about. And sometimes it might be a passage, it might be a problem. Sometimes it might be a person. It might be a song I heard. I don't know. I just started a running list of all the things I wanted to talk to God about. And that list got long. Okay. And so it all kind of came together, and I said, well, I'm going to call it Coffee with the King. And so I told someone about it, and they go, you need to write that down. You need to write it down so you can be able to explain it to other people. I haven't not told you this. Actually, maybe this came out of Remarkable You. I purchased the website coffeewiththeking.net.
I'm so glad you did.
Okay. And then I just put that story on there. So if anybody's interested, you want to know the kind of the whole story of what that's, coffeewiththeking.net. And so each morning I sit down and I open up, I use a like an iPad. My handwriting is real poor, so I can't really, if I wrote something, I can't go back and read it later. So I type out my prayer. I just like, okay, God, I put in my earbuds and I put on like just some instrumental music without words, just so I don't get sidetracked. And I just start typing, and I start talking to him about whatever's on that. A lot of times it's whatever's next on that list that I wanted to talk to him about, because it's usually a long list. But I will stop and I'll say, is there anything that I need to pray about today. And I usually just pray about one thing. It's usually just one thing. And the amount of time it takes is about the amount of time it takes to drink a cup of coffee, you know?
Well, Brian, the thing that's so cool, and I tease about all the time, and I say that I feel so grown up that I have sponsors. I have sponsors to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Very.
Because somebody has to pay for it. So yeah. So Beachy Beach, they kind of have to. I kind of make them, but so Beachy Beach sponsors me. But I have two amazing sponsors, and you may know about this one program I'm going to talk about. I did not know about it, so it kind of freaked me out. So Bay Tax Solutions. Brian Yormack is a guy who introduced me to this thing called cost segregation. And we all do it, and I may have used the wrong terms because I'm not a CPA or anything like that, but when we do our taxes on our buildings, especially our commercial buildings, we get to depreciate or get to write off things that are, they only have a lifespan. Like, this only lasts this long, and so you get to write all that off. But it typically is a 40-year plan, like 30 years to 40 years. Cost segregation helps you shrink it. So instead of me writing that off over the course of all those years, you can write it off in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
So they come in, and it's easier if I just say how much it costs. So it cost me $25,000 based on your building and stuff like that. And they say that if your building is $500,000, a new building or something you've remodeled, $500,000 or more, then it makes sense to do this. So my spending that $25,000 for the cost segregation saved several $100,000 in taxes. I'm talking several.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. It's a tax strategy that they started, and you get more if you're a real estate professional, which you and I both are.
Yeah.
So as a real estate professional, you get more. And it's amazing.
I'm going to check into that.
You need to check into that. It's Brian Yormack. And guess what? My accountant didn't tell me about it. Did not. Yep. And I have a fancy accountant. They did not tell me. Brian Yormack happened to come here and do a workshop. And the first 2 times I heard it, it took me a while. I went, ding, 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 ding. And I did it. It's amazing.
I'm in a Builder 20 group, and we'll have guest speakers come in. And one of the last times we had a guy came in, and he was a tax strategist, not an accountant, but he would work with accountants. And we had to pay him, and it sounds like a very similar situation, but there were some things that we were able to save on, and I had to pay them several $1,000s to, say I paid them, I think I may have paid them $20,000 or so. And they ended up saving me like $80,000. And so it was, I was like, that's a no-brainer.
This was $25,000 for several hundred.
That's even better.
It was bananas. And then so they also do the ERC credits. I think there's a time limit on that. I think that's about to run its course, but that's for all the people that kept all their employees during COVID. And I did, so I also qualify for that. So I'm excited. Well. So maybe one day that'll come in. But so that's one of my sponsors. Another one is the Final Touch Design, precious people, Skip and Marsha Wall. Remember I showed you my pretty summer kitchen?
Yes.
Fancy.
That's awesome.
They're the ones that did that.
Really?
And that is...
Turned out nice.
Nature Cast is the type of thing. I think the guys from like Freeport or something that invented that. I mean, crazy. So they did that. And so they do like kitchens, bathrooms, just anything somebody wants to do a remodel and final touch, like all the foo-foo happy things you need for your kitchen and stuff. They do that. They're wonderful, fine people, and love them so much. So that they pay for us to do this. So pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
We really appreciate you. So the other thing that I have a few other things to talk to you about, but I was telling Lacey the other day, I said, we talk off air. That always sounds like what all the special important people say. So off air, we were talking a little bit more about exercise, because I think the reason you and I are so passionate about this is we see the difference it's made in our lives. And when you have something, just like being a Jesus follower, just like being someone, once you discover...
You want to share it.
You want to share it, because you want everybody to feel the joy. But that's how I feel about exercise and fitness, specifically weight training. I'm super slide at your weight thing. So you brought up something that I thought was a really cool thing, and then I want to talk a little bit about brain health and stuff like that. So tell me what you said.
Putting it into perspective of when you think about how much time you spend at work or spend at home or spend in the car or whatever. But if you were to spend 2% of your time, that will put you, that's 30 minutes a day. If you exercised hard for 30 minutes a day, that'll put you in the top 90 percentile of our population. Think about that for a second. What else could you do for 2% of your time and put you in the top 90 percentile? Now, what if you spent 4% of your time? What if you spent an hour? It's an exponential number. It's a really good payback. And I'm really thankful that's the way God made us. Made us in such a way that we can take the time to take care of our bodies, right? And then get on with the rest of the things we need to do for that day.
That's so cool. I love that. And we also talked about that you were talking about a book on brain health. And was it Dr. Amen? Was it his book that you read?
Actually, I think
Dr.
it was.
Daniel, I love him.
Yeah.
He is absolutely, he's a wonderful man too.
Yes.
He's a fine, lovely Christian man. And his books on brain, Carolyn Leaf is also another one that writes on brain health. But they have discovered that, you said at the end of the book, it said something, if you don't do anything else I've asked you to do, if you do nothing else, you do this one thing, you exercise, your brain will be healthier.
Think about that.
That's amazing.
If you think about, all the other things, it's like that, what is it? The habit, the Keystone. It's a Keystone habit.
Keystone habit, yeah.
Keystone habit, because it does impact so many other things. If you took that one thing out, a lot of other things could have put. And I also have been reading, and I was going to do a whole podcast on this actually, and ask one of my doctor friends to come on about the fact that they've really discovered that exercise and our metabolic health is the one thing that can also stave off Alzheimer's, dementia, and things like that. Listen, that's been a thing that I've always been a little, not afraid about, but always been conscious of, that's the one thing that I don't want to happen to me. Yeah. So if I can exercise and eat right and do the things to prevent that, I'm all in. Are you playing pickleball yet?
I don't play pickleball.
Oh, you got to play pickleball. You got to
play golf.
Okay, I play golf too. But racket sports.
Yes, I heard that.
Are one of the very best sports you can do that increase your longevity. Tennis is actually number one, but I have a feeling pickleball is going to be heading in that direction. And then the other thing, have you heard about the connection with grip strength?
Yes, I have, and I worry about that because my grip strength's bad because of my carpal tunnel.
So, are you familiar with TRX, the strap?
Yes.
So TRX,
I use those.
So TRX makes. They're called a thick grip, and it's a thick grip that's about like this that goes over your TRX handles. And what it does, it forces you to improve your grip strength. Yes, because you can't get your hand all the way around it to grab it, and so you're having to hold on really tight. And so when I use TRX,
so I can buy that.
It's called thick grips, and you put them on your TRX.
I'm on it. I'm writing that down because I'm going to get me some thick grips. That is amazing. I love it.
All these things are interconnected, though, and you know what? You when you kind of get into those. As a life, we talked about being a lifelong learner, and you hear other people talking about certain things, and you take some time to investigate it. See, does that seem like it lines up? Does that seem like it's true? Is it something you can work into your routines? And so I'm always looking for things to improve upon.
Well, the whole point of this, My Happy Ass Life, is about increasing are being more efficient in mind, body, and spirit. And they're all important. They're all connected. And then when I get good in one area, I get better in the other area. So the other thing I wanted to talk about with you is, when I write down, when I was younger, this must have been 20 years ago, and I don't know, maybe from all the struggles with my family with addiction and stuff like that, you gave me a book called The Upside of Adversity.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I read that book several times.
I'm reading it again.
Yes.
I'm about to read it again.
Yes. It was, talked about Joseph and the struggles that he went through. Right? And I remember I got that book back, as a home builder, when the market crashed.
In 2008, we were crying.
And we lost, I lost everything, as a home builder, losing your home,
I lost my home too.
Yeah.
And in fact, I tell people, one year I was the #1 short sale expert in Bay County. I sold more short sales than anybody. And what I didn't tell them was that the very first home I did was my own.
Was your home. We had to short sell. I had to short sell my personal home too.
And that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. But the difference is, and I will tell you, that's something I'm working on right now. I'll be very vulnerable and honest about it, is the fact that I have not been a smart steward of my money. Because I don't really care about money, I have been flippant about it. My idea about making money was, I just make more. Well, that's not really a good strategy. It's worked kind of for all these years, but life has changed, and and I'm by myself, and I am responsible for I'm responsible for me and my kids, and and I have not been a good steward of my money. So I'm working on that. I'm trying to take the same principles that I've learned in my fitness journey and be intentional about my financial journey. But that was different because we all were in the same boat. That was a little, even though it was embarrassing.
Misery does love company. There is something about that.
We were all in the same boat. I mean, it wasn't like, we used to laugh and say that if you didn't lose at least one property, that you really weren't in real estate, because we believed in what we were selling and we bought it and we lost it. But it was bad.
Talking about saving, and I do have a story that this might be helpful.
Oh, I will take it. I need it. I'm seeking.
I remember when, we couldn't sell a house. We had unsold homes that we had built. Yep. Money was not coming in. And, I owned the Arthur Rutenberg Homes franchise, right? And so at that time, the way that they collected their fees for me was when the home sold. And now we do it as we collect draws and stuff. It was when the home sold. Well, it ended up with all these homes that never sold, right? Yeah, and so exactly. I owed Art all this money, and well into the six figures. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, because I couldn't afford even my own home. I couldn't pay my own mortgage, right?
No.
And I remember I was on, I had to take unemployment for several months. And that was pretty humbling. I paid into it all those years, and I was actually still paying a couple of people, but I chose not to pay myself.
I know, in there.
And you know what that's like. When you're the owner, you just got to do that. Those are the
all
things
the time.
You got to do. So,
yep.
Okay. So this is a lesson that I learned, is I had to pay Art back the money that I owed him. He didn't just forgive it. And he had to pay him back. And what we did is I paid him a percentage of every dollar that came in off the top. Okay? Not off the bottom, off the top. Meaning if $100 comes in, I would get, it was going to be 1%, and then I upped it to 2. So I was going to pay him back $2 for every $100 that came in the door right away. Like, not waiting until to see if there's anything left over. Well, when you pay off the top, it's part of it's in your mind. You're not trying to spend that extra $2 because it's already gone, and you're working with what's left over. Well, think about what a tithe is too. When do you pay a tithe?
At the top.
Up front, right? In the very front. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Off the top. Exactly. And so it's almost that same principle. And so it took several years to pay Art back. And I remember when it happened, I was so happy, and I wrote him a note and just said, thank you for being patient with me and all, because he didn't have to do that, but he was. And then I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this next month will be the first month in years that I don't have to pay all this extra money out before it comes back. And I said, wait, what if I use that to save? And I called the person that handles our back office accounting. I said, keep doing it, but just set up these two extra accounts. And I did it for two reasons. I said, set up a tax account and set up a savings account. And so, because, as a business owner, you're paying your taxes, you pay them quarterly. And those are always big checks, and if you're not planning for it, sometimes it's a hard check to write. Well, since I started doing that, it has never been an issue. I've never wondered where tax money was going to come from. And then also the savings money, the saving money, it's always been there now. So when you want to buy a piece of rental property, you want to put some money in the stock market and buy some investments, or do whatever it is that you're wanting to buy, but it's coming off the top. So I shared that several years ago with the guys. I mentioned my Builder 20 group before. We've been meeting for a long time, and many of them have implemented that as well. And they've said that's been one of the best things that they've done, because saving is hard, particularly as a business owner. And save it off the top. It goes in a separate account. you never see it until the time is when you actually need it. If that's helpful for you.
Awesome. That's awesome. One thing that I was talking about is so funny. I was talking to my fitness coach this morning, which I was laughing about the fact that my fitness coach is part fitness coach, part therapist. I think more therapist than fitness coach because it all binds together. But I was talking about that I wanted to be as intentional about my finance as I am about my fitness and my spiritual journey, because I'm very intentional about those. I mean, I get up and I have my time with God. I pray, I meditate, I write, I do all those things. I exercise, but I'm not intentional about my money. So what I thought I would do, I'm getting me a little notebook and I'm gonna make myself, like, what's the guy's name? Dave Ramsey. If I go try to spend some money, which I'm prone to do, and I also give away a lot when I shouldn't, I do believe in giving it, but I also have to make sure I keep the home front going, So I'm going to be intentional about that, like I was the other,
what is it? James Clear, the
Atomic Habits. Yeah.
One of the things he talks about is making it easy.
Yeah, make it easy.
And so figure out a way that when you wake up in the morning, these are the things you're going to do in the order in which you do them every day. So however you choose to save, figure out a way to make it easy where you don't have to remember, I forgot I was going to do that. And that's why I did that, the percentage.
Right, up front.
The percentage savings is I get an email every time we make a deposit. I get an email that says transfer this, and it's all automated. Right. And so I would say just figure out a way to make it easy.
Make it easy.
Where you can do it over and over again. You don't have to think about it.
That's so awesome. But I love it. So it's kind of funny because you and I have been through these same journeys the last few years. Yes. We're in the same industry, and so I think it's kind of like I had brain surgery in the year 2000. So when anything bad happens or anything, I go, well, it ain't brain surgery. I mean, seriously. So now, I don't know if you do the same thing, but when people talk about it being rough right now, because it is a little daunting. It's a little challenging. It's different. It's not, but that's the way life always is. It's always up and down, especially in this business. But the first thing that comes into my head, it ain't 2008.
Yep.
Every time somebody says, okay, it ain't 2008. I mean, once you've been through that, then you can do hard things. Yes. You can do these things. And it makes me thankful.
I teach entrepreneurship out at
I know, I love it.
And one of the things I talk to my students about is this, that there are going to be challenges. And just because something's a challenge, it doesn't mean you turn and go the other direction, right? Yeah. You have to figure that out, right? And every challenge you overcome, every hurdle you overcome, you're taller and you're stronger and you're able to handle that next challenge that's going to come your way. And you're building up strength for the harder and harder challenges. And some of us were building up strength, right, to deal with 2008. Some of us, that was a bit much, right?
Well, it was a bit much for me.
But since then, we've been building up strength again.
Yes,
yes. And so, not that 2008 is going to happen to us again, but there's other things that could happen. We're better equipped now to handle them because we have that experience under our belt. It reminds me of when I was in graduate school, I had this one professor. His name was Walter Manley. And he was the hardest professor I ever had. He came in the class and he said, "This will be the hardest class you've ever taken in college, hands down. I'm going to work you so hard." And he goes, "If you can't handle it, get out." Okay. The next class, half the class dropped the class. I stayed. Every single class, we had a 10-page paper due twice a week. We met twice a week. We had a 10-page paper due twice a week. It was the hardest class I'd ever done. And he made everybody, it was a small class, so he made everybody sit on the front row and he would just quiz us and lecture us. And he would get upset when we didn't know what we were supposed to know. But he remember him saying, he goes, "Look, I get paid $1 to do this. Go tell on me." Right? And they're like, "They're not going to kick me out of here." Right? And so he was an amazing man. Well, last year, I wrote him a letter and to thank him. Wow. Because that set the stage for so many other things in life. Because even after that one class, his name was Manley, which is kind of a neat name in itself, is we would say, "Well, I'm dealing with this difficult thing." We're like, "Well, what is it on a Manley scale?"
Oh, that is
right?
Awesome.
Well, it's like a 6 or it's a 7. Oh, so you could totally do it, So he actually reached back out to me after I wrote him that letter. I hadn't talked to him in 20 years, right?
Wow.
And so we ended up meeting up for lunch and we got to sit down and I was able to share with him about that story. But it's when you overcome something really big, you can overcome. You have so much. You have so much encouragement that you know that you can do that next thing.
I love it. One of my soundtracks is "Perhaps the Obstacle is the Way." There's a book written that way too. Ryan Holiday, I think, "The Obstacle is the Way." But when things are tough, I just go, "Perhaps the obstacle is the way."
Maybe so.
Perhaps it is. That's one of my soundtracks. So I wanted to ask you something. It was speaking of 2008. That really changed me. It really did. There's a few phases of my life that have changed me, and that really changed me. And because again, so many of us, we were sitting pretty. I had a beautiful home in Wild Heron. I played golf all the time. I wrote most of my contracts sitting on the golf cart. I was living life large, and then I wasn't. And then I remember being on the golf course, and I remember my husband and I were there, and we were on the driving range, and this was after many months of the phone not ringing, nothing was happening. Philip Poundstone, who was working at Rosemary Beach at the time, said, "Is your phone even rung?" I go, "It's not wrong." I mean, would somebody just ring my phone so I can remember what a phone ring sounds like? It was that bad. I mean, we did not make money for years, and we lost everything. So I've changed. I feel like I haven't changed as much as I need to about me, but there's some things that I don't do anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you what mine is, and I'm going to see if there's anything that you changed big after that you will never go back to. I used to think I had to have the biggest, nicest, most beautiful home in the nicest neighborhood. I mean, I thought that was so cool. And every now and then it's hard for me because I go in these beautiful houses and I go, I want a big laundry room with a folding table. And I want all these things, and I see them. But then I remember, I go, you know what? You've got an adorable house on a darling street. You can see the Gulf from your yard. It's a little house, but you're not house poor. Yeah. Because we had houses, we had all kinds of stuff. I never want to do that again. I will invest when I can, but I don't want my house to be what I spend all my money on ever again. Yep. I want to have a nice home, but was there something you changed about yourself after that?
I can think of several things. One was this. I remember I was standing there in my dining room, and I had a customer had called, and we were going to be losing our home soon. I was paying my mortgage with my credit card. Okay, thinking that things were eventually going to turn around. That just made things worse. And I remember made an appointment for the weekend to meet with this customer, and I know realtor hours are different than most typical other hours, and so, but I was operating in the capacity of a home builder at the time, which are typical normal workday hours, right? Monday through Friday. And so basically I was going to have to miss something with my family on the weekend to go to this other thing, to go meet with this person. And I remember thinking, I really prided myself in that. But man, if my customer needs to meet me, I'll meet with them whenever it is. And they were coming first. Mm-hmm. They were coming first. And this is what happened. I remember where I was standing. I remember I was in the dining room, and I looked up, and I just remember thinking, if something was to happen to me, they would just go find another builder to finish the house. Mm-hmm. But if something was to happen to me, who would be the one pouring into my family? And that really changed something that was going on in my life. And I said, I really want to pour into a group of people. It ended up being my small group is really what it was. A group of people that would be there for my family. Mm-hmm. What, heaven forbid, something happened to me, And so I started doing that, and that changed two things. Is I started using the airplane mode on my phone. Remember, the little button on
Yep.
And so when I pulled into the driveway, I would hit airplane mode, and I would turn my phone off when I was home with my family. And at first I thought the world was going to end if I did that.
That's incredible.
And then I realized it doesn't. It doesn't. You just have to be intentional, and organized, and be able to plan your day and plan time to pick back up when you need to pick back up, and start your day with a plan rather than just wait and let things just happen to you. And so it encouraged me to kind of just get my priorities in order, really. And that number one priority was how am I going to take care of how am I going to take care of my family and make sure I'm there. I'm the one that's there for them. And then if something was to happen to me, who would want to step in and be there to help them, support into those people?
That's cool. So I love that. That is so cool. So I don't think I'll ever, there's so many things in life I'll say I'm never going to be the same in a good way.
Yep.
In a good way. It changes me. So I have I've got to look at my notes to make sure I've not missed anything with you. I have loved having you talk with me, Brian. It's very important. We have this thing, we really care about each other. Absolutely. And you've done so many things in my lifetime. You always magnify me. You always encourage me. And I always feel better when I'm with you. I always feel lifted. And that, to me, is what we're here for. That's the whole point. That's
I hope the listeners and the watchers feel that same way, that you're lifting them up too. Yeah. And I know that they do. That's why you have a show. You're lifting them up. And I think that is so important, to be able to be an encourager to other people.
I love it.
I love seeing other people do well.
Thank you. And I love seeing you do well. Is there anything that you want to, any parting words, anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to share with my happy ass audience that you want to tell them?
Yeah, I think I would say this is, the whole 5 love language thing, right? So you can try so hard this one way to show love for these people in your life, but if they're not feeling that way, you're really spinning your wheels a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would say that if you just take a little time to be intentional with a few key areas of your life, with your health, with your relationship with God, your relationship with other people, the way you treat yourself, the way you treat others, the way you handle your finances, those types of, if you will do a few key intentional things, it can make a world of difference. I think that's probably the thing I'd like to leave you with.
I love it. And that's the whole point of this whole podcast. So I love it. Yeah. And I end every time by saying, be sweet, y'all.